At one point, he was considered the strongest man on the planet of One Piece, who could have been the king of the pirates a long time ago, with rivals like Gold D. Roger, Rox D. Zebek, and many other top tiers in the story. The father of the sea, Edward Newgate, better known as Whitebeard. Hello motherfuckers, welcome back to the motherfucking channel. Today we are getting into, this is the launch of my Ranking the Emperors series. And we're starting with Whitebeard. I am so excited because Whitebeard is one of my favorite characters from One Piece. His soul is just felt so deeply. And we're about to get into it. This is basically a deep dive into Whitebeard's story, and we're going to be ranking him at the end of the video. But before I start, please like and subscribe. We are on the road to 200 right now. We are at what, like 190 something, I don't know. But we're so close to 200. So please, if you like, you know, One Piece content, please like and subscribe. Now let's rank Whitebeard. Now let's start with Whitebeard's basic stats. Born April 6th on the Grand Line on an island called Shanks and died at the age of 72. He stood at 666 centimeters or 21 feet 10 inches tall, with an outrageous bounty of 5,046,000,000 berries. He was the captain of the Whitebeard pirates and also a Yonko, or an emperor of the sea, and at one point sailed with one of the most legendary crews in all of One Piece, the Rocks Pirates. And before his death, Whitebeard was the user of one of the most broken devil fruits in the series, the Gura nami, a paramecia type, allowing the user to create vibrations or quakes, making them the tremor human. This devil fruit is the strongest in the paramecia class, and it's said that this devil fruit is able to destroy the entire world. A pure destructive devil fruit, okay? I love seeing devil fruits like this because it just is so iconic, okay? And this is one of the reasons why Whitebeard was one of my favorite characters. And it's not because of the devil fruit, but it's because how he handled the devil fruit and his ability, his techniques. Iconic. It's iconic. And now we're going to get into the basic timeline for Whitebeard. Whitebeard was born 74 years ago on an island in the New World called Shanks to unnamed parents. But 72 years ago, Shanks became too poor to continue to be a part of the world government paying their tribute, which causes Whitebeard to grow up as an orphan because the island started to be attacked by navy and pirates alike. And at a very early age, he became a pirate to seek money to send back to Shanks to help the people of Shanks Island. Now, in Whitebeard's early years of piracy, long before he established the Whitebeard Pirates, he was on an unnamed crew, where he stated that he is not interested in treasure. He's more interested in creating a family, okay? And this is a huge theme for Whitebeard as we continue in this video. But sometime over 48 years ago, he lost a Davy back fight to the legendary Rox D. Zebek, and was forced to join Rox's crew, where he became a subordinate under Rox. And they would go on to travel to Elbaf, where they would meet a young giant named Loki, and later went on to have a feast with the king of Elbaf, King Harold. And King Harold told Rox's crew to stop following the man because he was no good. And they all refused, as they were very loyal to Rox, believe it or not. And soon after this, Whitebeard would agree to Rox's plan of taking over Hachinosu and the world eventually. And 44 years ago, the Rocks Pirates conquered Hachinosu, making it their base of operations, where Whitebeard soon invites a young Kaidou to meet Rox and join the crew. And at some point, Whitebeard and Rox traveled back to Elbaf, and they turned down Loki's persistence of them joining the crew, with Loki challenging Rox and ended up in Loki's brutal defeat. And Whitebeard would criticize Rox as Loki was just a child. Even though he was a giant, he was still a child. But back on Hachinosu, Whitebeard overhears a conversation about the Galley Raw, a frozen group of ancient giants that Big Mom was seeking out, but he just assumed that they were all dead. And at some point 42 years ago, Whitebeard was present with the other Rocks Pirates as they invaded and robbed Foot Colony and Temple of the International Philanthropy Federation charity. And here on this island where they attack, Whitebeard would go on to investigate a random basement with Kyo and Kaidou. But they got stuck in the basement, okay? And they ask Ochoku for help, where Shiki takes it in his own hands and throws a bomb down in the basement, trying to help them get freed. Shiki is a fucking wild one, okay? Nearly blowing them up, but Whitebeard takes it in his own hands and just uses his devil fruit power to escape, almost sinking the island in the process. This devil fruit is destructive. Okay, we all know this, but it's fucking crazy. And Kaidou takes notice in Whitebeard's devil fruit and says that he's like jealous or envious of the power that Whitebeard has, with Whitebeard telling him to be careful if he does choose a devil fruit, as devil fruits are a lifetime thing. You can't get rid of a devil fruit. And they would go on to escape the island, fighting their way through Marines. And not too long after this, everyone gets the news of Shaki stepping down as captain of the Kuja Pirates. Miss Stussy Buckingham is annoyed that everybody is talking about Shaki, and she's jealous. She would go on to ask if Whitebeard only cared about her, as she is obsessed with Whitebeard. Whitebeard had an admirer. I was gonna say secret admirer, but she didn't make it a secret, okay? Where she was met with brutal rejection from Whitebeard, and she would go on to try to attack Whitebeard, trying to force her love upon Whitebeard. But later that same day, Shaki shows up to Hachinosu, and the entire crew and everybody else on the island would go on to try to attack her. But when they are face to face with her, everyone is enamored by Shaki's beauty. Shaki really had them niggas like gagged, okay? And she would settle here on Hachinosu, where she would open a bar for business. And 40 years ago at Shaki's bar, Whitebeard was here enjoying some drinks, and then Goldie Roger arrives, trying to seek out Shaki and party with Whitebeard. But Whitebeard leaves before they could do so. Roger was just trying to fucking party, okay? He was a young nigga, he was trying to go crazy. Now, 39 years ago, Shaki was kidnapped by an unknown perpetrator who also killed Marlin in the process. This news moved through Hachinosu and angered everyone. Now, about a year later, 38 years ago, Shaki's location was leaked, and it was on God Valley, where she will be one of the main prizes for the World Nobles Native Hunting Competition, which shocked Whitebeard that such activities were actually real, as he did hear rumors that stuff like this happens throughout the world. This is his first time with a confirmation of it, okay? And on their way to God Valley, they are confronted by King Harold of Elbaf, who accepted a deal from the world government to kill the captain of the Rocks crew, and that is Rox Dizebek, and the two titans would clash, but it ended in a draw, and the crew would continue to make their way to God Valley.
The Rocks Pirates have made landfall! Rocks is a damn fool. He'll forget why we're even here. Let's move in and check the treasure.
And when arriving on God Valley, Rocks would make it clear that saving Shaki is the main objective. Any treasure or anything else that is found will be divided up later after all is said and done. But all the men on the crew begin to argue about who should save Shaki, including Whitebeard. And this obviously angered Stussy. And on God Valley, Whitebeard would say that he doesn't consider himself a subordinate under Rocks, as Rocks is a fool. And honestly, I don't blame him. Dropping everything to just go out and save Shaki. I mean, in retrospect, you didn't know that Emu was gonna be there and the Gorosei and stuff like that. GARP showed up and stuff. So I don't blame Whitebeard, but at the same time, Rocks didn't know that this was going to be his fate. But the crew would manage to pull themselves together and make their way inland of God Valley, where Whitebeard scares off a holy knight named Maffy. Now, I was gonna say the booty holy knights. I don't like the holy knights, whatever, but I mean, it's Whitebeard, okay? I would be scared of Whitebeard as well. I don't want to get hit with that tremor fist, what the fuck? And he would go on to inadvertently save a young marine named Monkey D. Dragon. But Big Mom would accuse Whitebeard of trying to attack her, which causes more arguments for the top tiers, where Kaidou and Shiki would soon arrive, and the crew manages to fight through fame-hungry pirates trying to make a name for themselves. However, taking out the fodder would cause their location to be leaked to Monkey D. GARP, okay, in his prime. Hello, once again, just like Whitebeard, I wouldn't want to face off with GARP. I'm sorry, a young, fast, strong GARP? No, no thank you. And the demon of the Marines jumps in to battle. Now they know the capabilities of GARP, okay? Like I said, that's GARP, a young GARP, hello? Knowing that if they did battle, it would eat up precious time, so Whitebeard, Kaidou, and Big Mom agreed to just run away. As they should. I'm sorry, I don't want to fight GARP. I don't. Continuing to make their way to where Shaki was being held, where they would begin to fight Roger and his crewmates. But soon after this, news would spread quickly of Rayleigh already saving Shaki, as that is his bitch. As that was the main objective of God Valley, Whitebeard and company decide to just plunder the rest of the treasure that is here on God Valley, but Whitebeard would split from the rest of the group and eventually run back into Rocks, while Rocks was taking out the booty-ass Holy Knights. And Whitebeard would stand next to his captain, and in loyalty, because he leaves his drinks on Rocks' tabs all the time, he doesn't give a fuck. Love that. I love that. This is his way of repaying Rocks. Where Kaidou would soon show up, excited to tell Whitebeard and Rocks about his newfound devil fruit powers. But the reunion is soon broken by Saint J. Garcia Saturn and Saint Nerona Emu, who had merged with Saturn and to create this diabolical, monstrous being, where Whitebeard would ask, "What the fuck is that?" Rocks would say, with a smile, "The world itself." I'm sorry, that shit is tough as fuck. But Whitebeard would stand back as Rocks begins to attack the insanery that he is seeing. But soon Whitebeard steps in, with Big Mom, Kaidou, Roger, Rocks, and GARP all attack Emu simultaneously. And this moment right here is one of those ones, okay? I have a top 3 when it comes to Whitebeard moments. This indefinitely is one of them. It has to be, you know what I'm saying? And as we continue on, I'll mention the other 2. When this is animated next year, it's going to be disgusting. It's going to look disgusting, okay? I can't wait. But even with all the power of all these top tiers attacking at the same time, it was useless, as Emu is immortal. And soon after this, Rocks gets too close to Emu, and Whitebeard has to watch as his captain is unfortunately Domi reversied. And under the orders of Emu, he is sent to attack Kaidou and Big Mom, making quick work of them, then turns his attention toward Whitebeard, and he attempts to slash Whitebeard, but Whitebeard ended up deflecting it, and it ended up destroying an entire mountain on God Valley. And Whitebeard realizes that there's nothing left here on God Valley for him. So he makes his own decision and decides to leave, where he meets a man by the name of Polo Graham, who would later go on to become the father of Marco. And Polo would go on to tell Whitebeard that he is a huge fan of his and offered him a spot on his ship so they could escape God Valley. And this whole event would go on to be known as the God Valley Incident, and it dissolved the crew of the Rocks Pirates, with all the surviving members going their separate ways. And around 33 years ago, Whitebeard was one of few ex-members of the Rocks Pirates who became wildly infamous. With growing influence in Rocks' absence, Rocks was the top tier. He was that guy, okay? And now he's gone. So his crew members, they were already very strong. This just put them up even more, okay? They sailed with Rocks. They were there on God Valley. They survived. They have broken devil fruits. They are the new top tiers. And around this time, he formed his own pirate crew known as the Whitebeard Pirates. Now, 30 years ago, the Whitebeard Pirates were shipwrecked in Wano country, where they encounter Kozuki Odin. And after a brief clash between Whitebeard and Odin, Odin would go on to ask Whitebeard if he could join his crew. And soon after this, they would go on to have a feast together, continuing to ask Whitebeard if he can join his crew, but was rejected each and every time. And about 2 weeks later, they attempt to leave Wano while leaving Odin behind, not telling him that they're about to dip. But Odin would catch up with the crew as there is a chain hanging off the ship, and Odin is currently being dragged in the ocean with this chain. And Izo, who is one of Odin's subordinates, would also be hanging on to Odin, where the crew would pull Izo up onto the ship, and Whitebeard would give Odin a test. If he can hold onto the chain while being dragged for 3 days without falling off, he could join the Whitebeard Pirates. And almost 3 days go by, with 10 minutes being left in this test. Odin hears a woman scream, and he let go of the chain, drifting to a nearby island. And about a day later, the Whitebeard Pirates also show up on this island, where they would find Odin and a woman named Toki, who is currently being attacked by a pirate named Karma. But Whitebeard would go on to defeat Karma and his entire crew solo, single-handedly, and finally allowed Odin to join the Whitebeard Pirates. And also Inuarashi and Nekomamushi were also stowed away on the ship, so they also joined the crew as well. And about 2 years later, Whitebeard would decide to split up his crew into divisions, appointing Odin as the commander of the 2nd division. And sometime later, he meets a young Blackbeard who Blackbeard wants to join the crew, which Whitebeard allows to happen. And soon they arrive on an island where they hear a commotion happening within the island, where Odin confronts the Roger Pirates and gets knocked away by Goldie Roger himself. And after they clash, the two crews would go on to exchange gifts and have a feast. But Roger would tell Odin and Whitebeard about his ambitions, okay? Finding the last island. He wants to borrow Odin so Odin can read the poneglyphs for Roger. But Whitebeard didn't want to give Odin up, but Odin wanted to go, so Odin makes the decision to leave the Whitebeard pirates, expressing his irritation after the two parted ways. And for the next few years, Roger, Shiki, and Whitebeard would go on to rule over the seas, clashing with Roger periodically and getting more acquainted with Roger's crew, like members like Buggy and Shanks. But soon after this, Roger would make it to Laugh-Tale. And at some point, Roger and Whitebeard grew to respect each other, looking at each other like rivals or like brothers of the sea. And shortly before Roger's death, he would go and visit Whitebeard, where he would tell him goodbye. And during this meeting, he would tell Whitebeard about the truth, the One Piece, the will of D, everything Roger knew in order to become king of the pirates. But Whitebeard wasn't really interested in this stuff. It was interesting, but he wasn't seeking out to become the king of the pirates.
What do you mean, Roger? You're going to die?
Yeah, I could just feel it. They call me Gold Roger.
So what? I thought that was your name. You want...
My real name is Gold D. Roger.
So, what does the D stand for?
That? You wanna know, huh? It's a story from way back when.
And around this time, he takes Squard onto his crew as Roger killed his entire Squard's entire crew. That's so crazy to me. I'd be forgetting that happened. And after Roger's execution, Shiki would break out of Impel Down and find his way to Whitebeard, where he would ask him for an alliance. And honestly, if Whitebeard had dark intentions, okay, those two would be so broken. Okay, absolutely disgustingly broken. But the paths just don't align for the two. Like I keep saying, Whitebeard could have been the king of the pirates if he wanted to, but he just wanted family. He just wanted a community of people that he loved and respected him. He would threaten Shiki, saying that he'll have him thrown overboard, and Shiki says he hasn't changed a bit. Good to see. Whitebeard is that guy. Okay, I'm sorry. He really is. Like, he's really set in his mind and his ways. You gotta respect it. You know, not everybody wants violence and to go be the king of the pirates. Not everybody wants to do that. Shiki would tell Whitebeard about his plan, and Whitebeard knew this plan was going to be trouble for Shiki, so he just doesn't want no parts of it, okay? With Whitebeard's execution and Shiki basically disappearing, this leaves Whitebeard the most powerful pirate on the sea. Close to none. No one is touching Whitebeard at this time. Big Mom, Kaidou, nobody's touching Whitebeard. And because of this, he was always made aware of the happenings of what is going on inside the world of One Piece. And soon, the world government would dub him one of 4 emperors of the sea. At some point after this, Crocodile would go on to challenge the Whitebeard. The beard. And at some point after this, Crocodile would go on to challenge Whitebeard to a duel, and this led to the humbling of Crocodile, as Crocodile wanted to become the next king of the pirates, but Whitebeard said, bro, you got a long way to go, and he was right. And sometime after this, he would travel to Fishman Island, claiming the territory as his own, bringing peace to the island, and he would become really great friends with King Neptune. No one dared to touch fishmen or mermaids. No one dared. And about 5-ish years ago, Whitebeard would read about a new rookie named Porcus the Ace, and his increasing fame as the captain of the Spade Pirates. And after the 5-day standoff between Jimbei and Ace, Whitebeard would go on to defeat Ace and the Spade Pirates, drafting the rookie to his crew and eventually making him the 2nd Division commander under the Whitebeard Pirates. Despite his young age and multiple assassination attempts on Whitebeard. And around this time, Ace goes on to tell Whitebeard that his father's name was Gold D. Roger. And as you know, if you've been watching this video, Roger and Whitebeard were pretty close friends, okay? Sengoku claims that Whitebeard already knew this though. And at some point, Ace would go on to tell Whitebeard about the happenings in Wano, with Kaidou taking it over, transforming the entire country into a weapons manufacturing island, and Ace wanting to go to war with Kaidou. And Whitebeard says it would be pointless because there would be too many casualties, denying the request to go and fight Kaidou. And after this, Ace would go on to defeat the warlord Hanafuda. We just did our warlord rankings, and Hanafuda was a part of that series, so if you want to go check that out, go check it out. And 6 months later, they were made aware of Hanafuda's replacement, which was Bartholomew Kuma. And soon after this, Whitebeard would go on to tell Marco about a mysterious race that lived atop of the Red Line long ago, before the world government created Marijua and the world government, who we know today as the Lunarians, describing it as the land of the gods. And during the East Blue Saga, Luffy obtains his first bounty, and Ace goes on to show Whitebeard and Jinbei the bounty poster, being happy and excited over his brother's, newfound fame. And during this time, Blackbeard would go on to kill the 4th Division commander named Thatch.
エース、面白いもん見つけたぜ。
お、それ悪魔の実か。
In order to claim the Yami Yami no Mi, that is the reason Blackbeard joined the crew, is to search for this devil fruit. He finally had the chance, so he took it. And Ace wants to go hunt down Blackbeard for his betrayal, but Whitebeard feels uneasy about the situation, saying to leave it alone, leave this one alone. And during the Skypiea saga, Rockstar of the Red Hair Pirates was sent to Whitebeard with a letter from Shanks, where Whitebeard would tear up the letter unimpressed, saying Shanks should show up himself, telling Rockstar to tell Shanks to bring some good sake when he does end up coming. And during the Water 7 saga, Shanks does arrive with the sake, mind you, KOing almost all of the Whitebeard pirates with his immense haki power. And he wants to talk to Whitebeard about Blackbeard and Ace, but Whitebeard would go on to talk about Goldie Roger, reminiscing of the old times with Buggy and Shanks, apprentices under Gold Roger, and he would even note Shanks's legendary duels with Mihawk. And Whitebeard is curious about Shanks's missing arm, and Shanks goes on to say that he bet it on the new generation. And Shanks would go on to tell Whitebeard to stop Blackbeard versus Ace, but Whitebeard just laughs it off, as he is too old to tell these new, younger pirates what to do. Shanks says that Blackbeard needs to be taught a lesson about morality and how he has nothing to fear. And the two would go on to clash, splitting the skies in the process. This was one of the first times we've seen this, where two crazy characters come together and clash and end up splitting the sky. So iconic. It's iconic.
That's supposed to frighten me, boy. I am Whitebeard!
Look at the sky. The clouds. No, the heavens themselves have been divided.
And during the Sabaody arc, Whitebeard and his crew would go on to try to stop Ace's execution. He would begin to make his move by taking out all 23 world government ships that were keeping an eye on him, doing it in an instant, leaving the Marines and the whole world government clueless as to when or where he'll pop up. And also during this time, Kaidou decides to make his way to Marineford, or to Whitebeard, okay, in order to fight. He wants to fight. Kaidou wants to fight, but is stopped by Shanks ultimately. Now finally on Marineford, the Whitebeard pirates make their iconic entrance into the war. This is so sickening to me, I'm sorry. Having 4 different ships rise above the waters in Marineford, with Whitebeard standing on the bow of the main ship, the Moby Dick.
そうだったのか。あいつら前線コーティング船で海底を進んでいたのか。
さらに3隻の白ひげ海賊団の船。湾内に侵入されました。
愛する息子は無事なんだろうな。
And Whitebeard would absolutely aura farm, releasing 2 quakes on both sides of him, causing the entire island to start tremoring in the process. With Ace asking why the Whitebeard pirate showed up and that it's his fault, while Whitebeard watches as 2 ginormous waves caused by the sea quakes that he just caused not too long ago start to fall down onto Marineford, ultimately being frozen by the legendary Admiral Aokiji.
Sage!
Aokiji.
Who would go on to try to attack the Emperor but is ultimately smashed. With Dracula, Mihawk, and Kizaru sending a barrage of long-range attacks straight towards Whitebeard but are blocked by Marco and Jozu, while Admiral Akainu launches his magma fist into the sky and Whitebeard actually catches one of these with his, I forget what it's called, but it's his sword. He catches it. It's so iconic. This whole entrance right here was just moved me. I was seated when I first seen this and it was really built up, you know? Whitebeard is known at this point as the strongest man alive, the strongest pirate alive. Like, he really popped up here to save one of his boys. I don't know, there's just something about this that gets me going. And Whitebeard would disapprove as Little Oars Jr. makes his way to the battlefield, calling him reckless and stupid, basically. And is ultimately brought down by Gecko Moria. Now, Vice Admiral Lawns would go on to try to surprise attack Whitebeard, and I was talking about earlier a top 3 for Whitebeard. This, to me, is considered a top 5, almost a top 3, because Whitebeard takes down the giant with a single quake fist straight to the face. He stood no chance, okay? And I mean it when I say every attack Whitebeard did here on Marineford was noteworthy. Okay, so I'm gonna try to hold back when I'm talking about these attacks, but it's just so iconic. And he would go on to tell his subordinates to push past their fallen comrades and continue to make their way to Ace, but began to wonder what Sengoku was planning, when suddenly Whitebeard notices a ship falling from the sky. It's Luffy and company with a bunch of escapees from Impel Down, here to help with the rescue of Ace. And a part of these escapees was Crocodile. Now, if you remember, Crocodile once tried to take out Whitebeard years ago and was pummeled by Whitebeard. We already talked about this, but Crocodile would go on to try to get his revenge here on Marineford, but Luffy kicks him away with ease. Bro, stop. We're not here for this. We're here for Ace's rescue. Standing next to Luffy, Whitebeard would go on to tell Luffy that he is risking his life here on the battlefield, but Luffy, being Luffy, of course, would go on to not give a fuck, okay, and tell Whitebeard that he will become the next king of the pirates. And this honestly shocked Whitebeard, okay, and things started to go in his head, okay, we might have to protect this little boy. As Sengoku would go on to tell the entire battlefield that Monkey D. Dragon is indeed Monkey D. Luffy's father. And with this, Whitebeard would go on to tell Marco and the rest of his crew that Luffy cannot die. And in order to stop another crocodile situation from happening, Whitebeard goes on to make an alliance with Buggy, who gladly accepts. And Whitebeard is currently trying to get a hold of Squard, and when he can't get a hold of Squard, he goes on to give the DeKalvin brothers mission to split up the subordinates and lead them around the bay in both directions, as Squard suddenly appears, telling Whitebeard that they're being hit really bad from the back. Pause. Which finally leaves Blackbeard to join in on the fight, but not before being stabbed through the chest by Squard, under the pretense that Whitebeard had made a deal for Ace. While Ace is saved, the rest of the crew would die. Whitebeard would go on to forgive Squard in the moment, because also, if you remember, Squard's crew all got killed by Goldie Roger. Ace is Goldie Roger's son, so there's something there. With Whitebeard telling Squard that he would do this for any one of his crewmates. Go to war for any of his crewmates. Love to see it. And Whitebeard would use his devil fruit to destroy the tsunami walls that were surrounding the bay so his crew could press on. Where his first victim was John Giant, okay? This top three. This was top three for me. For sure, forever and always, top three Whitebeard moment. As he grabs the air and creates a shockwave / airquake, sea quake, quite literally tilting the entire island on its head. It's a moment. That is a moment, okay? I'm sorry, but it is. This, in my opinion, seeing him like hit the, when he first popped up doing the sea quake and the waves came or whatever, that was a moment for sure. But it's just like seeing him being able to grab the air and just like pull it's a moment. Hello. Utterly destroying the giant, showcasing his broken ability. And this attack would go on to make it all the way to where the Ace's platform. But this attack would be stopped by or blocked by the three admirals. with Akainu going on to destroy the Moby Dick with his magma fists.
火の手を消すんだ。この船でまた仲間とエースを一緒に旅をするんだ。白ひげ、お前の時代は終わりだ。
Whitebeard would silently go on to apologize to the Moby Dick as they've been through it all, okay? And now they're here meeting their fate. The crew continues on by the help of Little Oars Jr. and Whitebeard goes on to try to attack but is frozen by Aokiji, and Whitebeard easily breaks through this because there's nothing stopping those tremors, okay? There's nothing stopping it.
Ice ball!
Where he would break out and go on to stab the admiral with his Naginata. That's what it's called, Naginata, something like that. It's something like that, his sword, okay?
Ice?
But is ultimately stopped by Jozu. As Whitebeard goes on to catch a heavily injured Luffy, who was kicked by Kizaru, and Whitebeard would throw Luffy to his subordinates, telling them to patch him up, heal him, make sure he's good. And Whitebeard and Akainu would begin to clash. Now, here's where I need to pause. We need to remember, Whitebeard was sick. Stage 3. Okay, let's just say that. Stage 3. And all this fighting is taking a toll on his body, as he would begin to have a coughing attack in the middle of this battle, allowing Akainu to land a strike on the Emperor. And all while this is happening, Marines are sending barrages of bazookas and swords and whatnot at Whitebeard. But Whitebeard proceeds to fight them off, claiming that he will not die until Ace's freedom, as they continue to make their way to Ace's platform, and when suddenly the execution is sped up. They want to kill Ace right then and there, and Whitebeard can't stop it. Suddenly, Luffy unleashes an insane Supreme King Conqueror's Haki burst scream when he screams Ace's name, stopping the execution for now.
Yaru!
Taking out a bunch of fodder in the process, and Whitebeard would go on to tell his crew to back Luffy. And as Luffy almost makes it to Ace, Kizaru shows up and is about to attack Luffy, but Whitebeard steps in and Kizaru uses his power, his light power, to shoot Whitebeard through the chest. But eventually Luffy would manage to free Ace, as Squad brings one of the ships into the bay so everyone can escape. They saved Ace. It's time to go. It's time to back out. Everybody get the fuck out. But Whitebeard stops the entire operation, telling everyone else to go while he stays here and meets his fate. Going on to ask Ace if Whitebeard was a good father to him, with Ace affirming that he was. However, Ace was soon killed after this by the Admiral Akainu. Whitebeard would cry watching Ace die. Enraged over Ace's death, Whitebeard would go on to brutally attack Akainu with a quake punch straight to the face. With Akainu eventually responding by burning off half of Whitebeard's head. They didn't show it in the anime, but that's what happened in the manga. It's actually a sick panel. With Whitebeard attacking him again, and this attack would heavily damage Marine headquarters.
Time for you to step down.
And this is top one. This is my favorite Whitebeard moment, in my opinion. There was just so much behind that hit that he gave to Akainu. The intent, the emotion, everything about this was just like, fuck. Okay, so much so that people now want Akainu to die. They can't wait for Luffy to get his get back. Maybe Sabo gets the get back. Somebody's gonna get the get back for Ace, and it's gonna be against Akainu. So in the moment, okay, this was everything. So I don't know, top one for me. The attack ended up separating the entire island from Whitebeard and his crew. He keeps telling them to leave, just go. He'll stay here, he got this, so you guys can escape. And he continues to go on to attack the Marines. That is until Blackbeard appears, immediately attacking Blackbeard, but is stopped by Blackbeard himself with the power of the Yami Yami no Mi.
Pretty handy, ain't it? I could nullify your fancy little tricks just like I did with good old Ace. No, you don't! Do you hear what I just said?
But this is also just another moment for me because Whitebeard didn't need his devil fruit to really put in work, because he would go on to hit the fuck out of Blackbeard with his Naga Nada.
Be such a sore loser! Ah! You're arrogant, a fool. Hey, hold on! Your own son!
Where Blackbeard would go on to tell his crew to kill him, take him out, take Whitebeard out, and the Blackbeard crew would go on to repeatedly stab and shoot Whitebeard. with Whitebeard going on to tell Blackbeard that he indeed is not the one that Roger was waiting for, and would go on to give us one of the best speeches in One Piece, how when it's found it will go on to engulf the world in a crazy war, going on to say that the One Piece is real right before he dies.
Sengoku, you and the government know what's coming. Nothing you do will stop it. But someday that treasure will turn this world upside down. You know what I'm talking about. The One Piece! The One Piece is real!
Being shot 152 times, stabbed 267 times, and hit by 46 cannonballs, where he remained standing even in his death. A legendary death for a legendary character. I know it's kind of sad and fucked up, and he was really getting jumped if we're being real, but it's such a way to go. He was trying to save one of his beloved sons, and he just got caught up in the process. Blackbeard would go on to use an unknown method to take Whitebeard's devil fruit, allowing him to now carry 2 broken devil fruit.
おめえらに俺の力ってもんを見せておこう。ブラックホール！なんだ！俺が！
This moment is crazy. It really, Whitebeard's death really elevated Blackbeard in the world of One Piece in a scale of a villain. This was the first time we ever heard someone eating 2 devil fruits, because as we know, if you eat 2 devil fruits, your body is supposed to explode, right? And the fact that it was Blackbeard that took the final shot on Whitebeard, it's a moment, a full circle moment, as he did join the Whitebeard Pirates at such a young age. Whitebeard didn't see it coming. But eventually Shanks would show up to Marineford and puts an end to the war, taking Whitebeard and Ace's bodies and burying them somewhere near Sphinx Island, buried right next to each other with some of their personal belongings. Now, Whitebeard dying would cause serious vacuum, devastating effect in the One Piece world, as Whitebeard had a lot of territories around the world, and for the most part, he was a peaceful pirate, okay? So these places were peaceful, nobody ever thought of touching them, but now he's dead, so these places just became messy for the most part, becoming vulnerable, and most of them being taken over by Blackbeard, who would go on to defeat the remnants of the Whitebeard Pirates in an event called the Payback War. After this, the Whitebeard Pirates would officially disband, and this causes Blackbeard to replace Whitebeard as one of 4 emperors. And around this time, Miss Buckingham, Stussy, and Weevil would appear, claiming that Whitebeard is the father of Weevil and is owed Whitebeard's iconic treasure. And that is the last we hear anything about Whitebeard as of 1187 in One Piece. Now, before I go on to give my predictions and rank Whitebeard, I want to give my thoughts on Whitebeard real quick. Whitebeard's legacy was very fatherly, and his death was felt around the world. When it comes to top tiers in One Piece, he stood out among the rest, not being someone that was going out looking for trouble like other top tiers in the story. In fact, if you had redeemable qualities in Whitebeard's eyes, you could be saved. A true pure soul in the world of crazy pirates and thieves and whatnots. And in my opinion, Whitebeard's death was more sentimental than Roger's, okay? Not to compare deaths, okay? Roger's death definitely started the Great Pirate Era, but Whitebeard's death pushed that era more, okay, creating a whole new era for younger pirates to go out and find the One Piece. But I say Whitebeard's death was more sentimental, as when they were alive, right, that influence and power was spread between mainly those two, also Shiki as well, but mainly Roger and Whitebeard. As Roger died, all that influence and power dropped into the hands of Whitebeard, and he would go on to keep the peace within the world. Because if he would have locked in and wanted to be the next Pirate King, he would have been the next Pirate King, as at one point in time, he was the strongest pirate in the world. But it was all useless, you know? He knew what the One Piece was. He knew what the Will of D meant. He knew these secrets that everybody is seeking out. He simply didn't care. A true anomaly in the story. Whitebeard, my respect for Whitebeard runs very, very deep. Like I said, not everybody needs to be the king of the pirates, you know? He just simply wanted a family. He was a family man. Love that. I love that. Okay, now let's move on to my predictions for Whitebeard. First of all, yes, Whitebeard is dead, okay? And I believe that he is dead. This isn't like a thing where he comes back to life or something, or it was a fake out. Whitebeard is dead. But I believe his character will be of importance again in the story. Walk with me. The truth about Weevil will reveal something, whether that be cloning or simply Whitebeard's treasure. Something is coming out of that Weevil flashback or whatever. Now, my most important prediction for Whitebeard is that the Whitebeard pirates may start up again, with Marco being behind it, or even Weevil. Okay, I believe that Weevil is not evil. Okay, I believe that he's just absent-minded. He's not stupid either. I don't know. I feel like something is coming from Weevil, and they could restart up the Whitebeard pirates, you know, and going on to have a second wind of infamy. Obviously not as strong as when Whitebeard was alive, but I could see that happening, you know? I want to know your guys' thoughts on that in particular. Now, I'm going to give Whitebeard a solid S. Solid. I don't care what anybody has to say about this. Whitebeard, when it comes to emperors, okay, especially early on in One Piece, when you thought about an emperor, I thought about Whitebeard. I wasn't even thinking about Shanks, you know? He served his purpose beyond, okay, keeping the peace within the world. Now, to become an emperor, it is to keep balance within the world. Whitebeard did that to a T. Perfectly. He was different, way beyond different from characters like Big Mom, Roger, Kaidou, Shanks, even Blackbeard. You know, he's just so different from these people. His morality runs deep. But not only is he respected within, you know, the fans love Whitebeard, the world government respected Whitebeard too, as during the whole Marineford incident, they would say that this could be their last battle. Like, he is a force to be reckoned with. And I 100% believe if Whitebeard wasn't stage 3, he would have won that war single-handedly. Nobody would have fucked with him, okay? Prime Whitebeard beats the shit out of all 3 of the admirals, Sengoku. I don't know about GARP. We'll save that for another conversation. But I feel like he would have got Ace up out of there. They would have survived. But you know, it is the story. And honestly, I could put him in a rank above S, okay? And give him a solid Pirate King ranking. That's just how I feel, okay? Now, I would love to know your thoughts on the Whitebeard, okay? Like I said, he's just a fucking legend. I'm sorry, when it comes to aura farming in One Piece, every time he was on the screen, he was aura farming, even if he wasn't doing anything, okay? His presence alone was felt. I love Whitebeard personally. I would love to know what you think about Whitebeard. And while filming this video, we have hit the mark of 200 subscribers. Now we are on our way to 250. So please make sure you like and subscribe. If you've gotten this far in the video, you better like and subscribe, or else I will send Foxy after you right now. But be back here on Friday as we will get into some Whitebeard theories. I'm really excited about those theories. They're pretty good, actually. And go check out my other Emperor series, okay? We've done Rocks. I explain it in the video. I know he's not an Emperor, blah, 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 but I explain it in the video why I ranked him with the other Yonkos. Go check that out. And next week, we'll be getting into Buggy, okay? And go check out the rest of my content. It's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. But I guess that's it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye, motherfuckers.